As Christians, we know that we are called to preach the gospel to all people. In fact, we also are aware that the gospel is the power of God unto salvation. But the big question is this: what is the gospel? Today, we want to answer that in this video. This is Discipleship Everywhere, a platform for discipleship vision, inspiration, and training wherever you are, whenever you need it. I remember this vividly because I was standing in my room and I had made a decision after I had gone through a journey of questioning and trying to understand the Christian message. I'd gone through this journey and come to the conclusion that the Christian story is true and the Christian story is real. But I realized that coming to that conclusion was not going to do very much for me. What I needed to do was I needed to draw a line and cross over. And so that's what I did. Standing in my room and with an imaginary line drawn, I decided that day that I was not going to just be a Christian. I was going to become a disciple. I decided that God's great commission was going to become my personal mission. And so I surrendered my life, I consecrated myself. And in that room, I decided that even if nobody would go with me, none of my friends understand, I chose that day that I would follow Christ. And so I remember as I prayed and as I offered my life to God, I said, God, I want this great commission to truly be the reason, the mission of my life. I will go wherever you send me into all this world to preach this good news, to preach this gospel. Not shortly after that, I came to a stunning realization. I did not know what this gospel was. And right at that very beginning, even though I'd been in church all my life, right at that very beginning, I knew in that commission I was meant to go and help people know this good news. I was meant to help people understand this gospel. But I did not know what the message was. What were the components of this message? What's the A to Z of this gospel? And if I don't know it, then how am I going to proclaim it to others? Maybe you found yourself in that similar situation. That's why this video is here to help you as a resource to really understand how we can very simply proclaim the gospel. What are the components of the gospel? Now, before we dive straight into what the gospel is, there's another video that we have that's going to be very helpful. If you haven't seen that, I want to encourage you to go and look at that, because that encourages us and reminds us that it is the Holy Spirit who draws people. And in partnership with the Holy Spirit's drawing of people, then we come as the external calling to give people an understanding of this gospel. And so they work hand in hand. And so as we discern the work of the Holy Spirit in someone's life, we then also present the gospel. So what are the components of the gospel message? I want to give you 4 very important handles and keys and components to the gospel story. The first is God. See, the gospel, the good news starts with God. It's about God. The story of our lives, the story of this universe, the story of our history, the story of our future is about God. He is the author. He is the beginner. He is the end. He is the Alpha and the Omega. And so in the story, you want to help people understand that there is a God. And if people struggle with that, you want to stay there for as long as you need to, until people can see and recognize actually there is a divine supreme being who is not just an external force, but he's a person. And as we help people know that there is this God, then we need to help people see that this God created man in his very own image. But the second handle, which is equally important, is that we need to help people see that even though initially God created man to have a wonderful relationship with him, that man decided to disobey God. And sin entered their lives and their hearts, and sin entered this world. And what sin does is this: it causes a separation between us and God. So all of humanity has fallen short. All of humanity has fallen into sin. And so sometimes we need to let people stay with this truth and this idea for a while. It's actually not difficult. right? Because if you look at the world around us, we see the brokenness, we see the evil, and then we realize this, that the brokenness and the evil is not just outside of us. If we're really honest, that brokenness and evil is also inside of us. And so this sin continues to plague humanity and separates us from a loving God who created us. The third component is Jesus. Because the answer to what is going to cause this rift to be restored is not in our goodness. It's not in what we can do, but it's in what Jesus has done. And He became our sin so that He would bridge between us and God and between God and us. And if we put our faith and our confidence in Jesus, then we too will be redeemed and restored, and we can return to Christ. So the fourth component, which is vital in the gospel story, is the response that we have to this Jesus and what He has done. And that fourth component is faith. Because we need to put our confidence and have our faith not in what we can do to save us, but we put our confidence in Jesus. 4 components in the gospel: God, sin, Jesus, faith. Who God is, who we are because of sin and the separation that took place, Jesus and what He came to do, and our response, faith in Jesus alone. You know, there are a number of tools that people have created to help us as Christians know how to share this gospel story. In our Being Rooted book and our manual, in chapter 10, there is a great illustration there that we've used very often. It's called the bridge illustration. I'd like to commend you to get a copy of that and go through that chapter, because you can learn how to tell the story by using that illustration. You know, we'll put other resources available and other tools available for you to learn how to share the gospel and be able to use these tools whenever they are required. So may you be blessed as you and I go into all this world to preach the good news, knowing that the weight's not just on us, but it's the Holy Spirit who draws, together with the gospel message that we bring, and in partnership with one another, that we can see humanity cross the line of faith. So wherever you are, whatever's going on in your world, whatever season you're at, will you go and make disciples wherever you are?